"I can't die now. I got two lil brothers up under me," were the exact words of young Dolph in his song Much Deeper, dedicated to his lost relatives. Years later, he dies when shopping at his favorite bakery in his hometown. His death shook everyone because all people could say about this soulful and talented rapper were good things. Yes, he had some beef, but which rapper doesn't? The question still remains. Who could have wanted to hurt a man this loved?
Important clues in solving a mystery in Memphis. Who shot and killed young Dolph in his own hometown?
The hunt was on, but like flies, people of interest in young Dolph's case were dropping. So in this video, we'll explore how young Dolph's suspected killers are all getting killed. Life and death of young Dolph. The predominantly black enclave of Castalia Heights, boxed in by a former Army supply depot, railroad tracks, and churches, has been a haven of gang activity and was once heavily affected by the crack epidemic and has been home to young Dolph since he was a child.
I avoid certain drugs, you know what I'm saying? Everybody know, man, I do what I do. You know what I'm saying?
The day prior to his final journey to Memphis, young Dolph and his partner, Mia J., were together at their home in Georgia, deep in discussion about a significant milestone in their 10-year relationship. Young Dolph, known for his distinctive voice, bold charisma, extravagant cash giveaways, and his influential independent label, Paper Route Empire, expressed his desire not only to marry in 2022, but also had a specific vision for how the celebration should unfold. The couple contemplated keeping the wedding a secret from their guests. They decided to invite everyone to a fancy ball at a winery, initially pretending it was a celebration for Jay's April birthday. The real twist came when young Dolph planned to surprise everyone with an unexpected wedding ceremony. He envisioned shifting the spotlight onto his parents, Adolph and Diane Thornton, who he felt deserved a grand gesture of love and appreciation. Dolph wanted his parents to renew their marriage vows, a touching moment that would be witnessed by their entire circle of family and friends. Reflecting on their conversation, Mia J. recalls her initial skepticism. "I didn't think he was serious, but then he said it not once, not twice, but 3 times to different people." Looking back, she couldn't help but view it as a classic reminder of young Dolph's character. He always sought to share the most beautiful experiences in life with his loved ones, taking them to places they had never been before. Dolph yearned to expose his family to all the joy life had to offer. Dolph firmly believed that his parents, who had endured the devastating impact of the crack epidemic in the 1980s, had survived almost 4 decades of hardship together. He considered their journey from rags to riches a remarkable testament to their strength and resilience. Therefore, he wanted to publicly honor them, crowning them as the king and queen of his own personal empire. Mia Jaya affirms Dolph's deep-rooted motives, sharing. He was telling everybody how his parents got married in his grandparents' living room, so he wanted them to experience a wedding. It would have meant so much to him. Filled with excitement and anticipation, Dolph and Jay began the necessary paperwork for their wedding. They shared inspirational photos with their wedding planner, kickstarting the process of turning their dreams into reality. The following day, on the 15th of November, 2021, Dolph bid farewell to their Georgia home and set off for South Memphis to commence his annual turkey giveaway event, a cherished tradition he wholeheartedly embraced every year. Among his many stops, he made his way to the West Cancer Center and Research Institute in Germantown, Tennessee, where his beloved aunt, Rita Myers, was undergoing treatment. Dolph sought to express his gratitude to the dedicated staff, which inevitably led to him posing for photographs during his visit. During this time, Dolph was at the pinnacle of his career, wielding immense influence. The self-made millionaire musician, age 36, had an upcoming performance scheduled at Rolling Loud, California on the 11th of December 2022, which would have marked his 4th appearance at the widely recognized multi-city hip-hop festival. Dolph was set to share the stage with some of the biggest names in the rap industry. His 2020 album, Rich Slave, earned both critical acclaim and commercial success, debuting at an impressive number 4 on the esteemed Billboard 200 chart. Additionally, his protege, Key Glock, who frequently collaborated with him on the wildly popular Dumb and Dumber albums, was gaining recognition through new music released under the Paper Route Empire label. Dolph, as the spirited poet of South Memphis, had an uncanny ability to transform adversity into abundance through his music and his resilient approach to life. Sadly, just 2 days later, tragedy struck. Despite surviving 2 previous shootings, the remarkably prolific artist, whose birth name was Adolph Thornton Jr., fell victim to a fatal shooting at Makeda's Homemade Cookies in Memphis, Tennessee on the 17th of November. This bakery was just a stone's throw away from the Castalia Heights neighborhood where he had spent his formative years. Distressing surveillance footage captured the heart-wrenching moment when 2 masked gunmen arrived in a stolen white Mercedes-Benz. Swiftly, they circumvented the back of Dolph's custom camouflage Corvette and unleashed a barrage of bullets upon the rapper, who was innocently shopping inside the store. The video footage revealed a horrifying scene that unfolded before our eyes. An autopsy later confirmed that Dolph had sustained 22 gunshot wounds. Tragically, he was declared dead at 12:39 p.m., a mere 5 minutes after the Memphis police responded to the distress call.
These are the new photos released by the Memphis Police Department. Surveillance photos show 2 people jumping out of a white car armed with guns. The The suspects, we're told, approached young Dolph while he was inside of the cookie store and fired shots.
The incident occurred precisely 1 hour before people were scheduled to gather and receive free turkeys distributed by Jay Fizzle, another artist signed to Paper Route Empire, at a nearby community center. Young Dolph's untimely demise abruptly ended a remarkable life, one that had been filled with artistic accomplishments and an unwavering commitment to uplift his community. It left countless fans and loved ones in a state of deep mourning. Another rapper lost. Someone lost a father, someone lost a brother, someone lost a son, and someone lost the love of their life. Dolph had risen to become a legendary figure in Memphis with sheer force of will, a hustler spirit, and natural talent. Born Adolph Thornton Johnson Jr. on July 27, 1985 in Chicago, he soon found himself in Memphis after his family relocated when he was just 2 years old. He attended Hamilton High School, nurturing his roots in the city that would later become an integral part of his identity. Dolph's musical career really took shape when he released his inaugural professional mixtape titled Paper Route Campaign in 2008. However, it was 8 years down the line that he boldly asserted his position in his hometown with his debut studio album, aptly named King of Memphis. AllMusic.com aptly summarized his musical journey as one defined by both his nonstop work ethic and consistent high-quality output. In 2017, Dolph faced a grave threat when he was targeted in 2 separate incidents. While in Charlotte that February, his $300,000 SUV was subjected to over 100 gunshots. Remarkably, he credited the bulletproof panels in his vehicle for saving his life. Black Youngsta, a rapper associated with Yo Gotti's record label, faced charges connected to the incident, which were subsequently dropped in 2019. In defiance, Dolph released his second studio album that April, aptly named Bulletproof. Later that year, in September, he faced another attempt on his life, being shot outside a hotel in Hollywood. Miraculously, despite sustaining 3 bullet wounds, he quickly recovered, leaving the hospital after 2 weeks. I just want to point out that Yo Gotti was at the hotel where Dolph was shot. Young Dolph's career was often intertwined with a feud with fellow rapper Yo Gotti. This ongoing beef was a central narrative in Memphis rap for years. Dolph even labeled Gotti "my biggest hater" in a 2016 tweet. The animosity stemmed in part from Dolph's assertion that he had rejected offers to sign with Gotti's record label. In 2020, Dolph's 5th studio album, Rich Slave, made a significant impact, debuting at number 4 on Billboard's Top 200 Albums chart. This marked his highest charting record to date. Significantly, his albums were released through his own Paper Route Empire label. Dolph's success not only elevated him but also shone a spotlight on the Memphis rap scene. As he famously stated, "Dolph put the light on Memphis." Despite his fame, Dolph remained deeply connected to his hometown. He actively engaged with his fans and the community, hosting Thanksgiving turkey giveaways and performing at local events, such as the Midnight Madness celebration for Memphis Tigers basketball, demonstrated his ongoing commitment to his roots. Earlier this year, he even graced the halftime show of a Memphis Grizzlies game. Young Dolph's life embodied his city's spirit, a journey from humble beginnings to musical success and a dedication to his community that remained unwavering, even in the face of fame. So it's really no surprise the news of his death is met with so much anger by his fans. So much so that those suspected of killing him were getting gunned down. The death of Joshua Taylor. In a tragic turn of events, a man previously identified by police as a person of interest in the 2021 murder of rapper and music executive Young Dolph has been fatally shot.
Yeah, we start with that breaking news tonight. We've been told by Memphis police that a high-profile gang member was killed in a shooting in Orange Mound this afternoon. This is according to family members who tell us Joshua Taylor was named a person of interest in the Young Dolph murder case back in February of 2022.
The city of Memphis was once again gripped by a somber atmosphere as reports emerged that Joshua Taylor had fallen victim to a deadly shooting on a Wednesday afternoon, as recounted by family members. Fox 13 reported that Taylor had been discovered shot to death inside a car after the police were called to Sportwood Avenue. Despite the passing of time, the investigation into this case remained active, and there was no clear suspect on the horizon. Joshua Taylor, known by the alias CEO Teasy, had garnered attention earlier when he was named a person of interest in the Dolph murder case in February 2022. Beyond this, he was also wanted in connection with various other charges, including theft of property between $10,000, $60,000, and possession of a prohibited weapon. But why was Joshua Taylor a person of interest for the murder of Young Dolph? Well, the unsettling revelation was that Taylor was believed to have had a connection with Justin Johnson, one of the 2 individuals accused of being involved in Dolph's murder. Although Taylor was never directly charged with Dolph's murder and had not been mentioned in connection to the case, investigators displayed interest in uncovering uncovering potential information. The police wanted to get to the bottom of the case. This was because the tragedy that befell young Dolph struck the city deeply. His life was tragically cut short while he was shopping at Makita's Cookies near his childhood home in Memphis in November 2021. So the police were scrambling to get to the bottom of it. On the night of young Dolph's murder, the streets were very volatile, and the police feared this type of retaliation.
We are encouraging everyone to stay in if they don't have to be out.
At that point, this may have seemed a little bit dramatic, but they were not far from the truth, because in the wake of young Dolph's untimely death, emotions ran high. A comedian, Darion Demuni Childs, attempting to find humor in the tragedy, made online jokes about the incident. On Facebook, he had posted, "Them folks just killed young Dolph. I love Memphis Cure, we so gangsta," with laughing emojis. The comedian continued with these remarks, enjoying the attention he was gaining. However, the reality check came in the form of a violent attack, continuing the cycle of violence. However, the consequences for someone who attempted to trivialize young Dolph's death showed the potential fate for those directly linked to his demise. Maybe this was the police's wake-up call to act fast, or maybe they were already on the tail. But there wasn't any definite arrest or anything of the sort until January 2022, when the Memphis police had managed to identify some suspects.
Breaking news first at 6. 2 suspects are now charged in the murder of young Dolph. Tonight, we're learning more about what led to their arrest.
Cornelia Smith and Justin Johnson emerged as the initial individuals charged for the crime. They were believed to be the 2 assailants responsible for ambushing and fatally shooting young Dolph.
Law enforcement received hundreds of tips and leads, which led to the cross-country manhunt and capture of one suspect, the charging of another suspect locally, and potentially more arrests.
The U.S. authorities had taken Johnson into custody near Terre Haute, Indiana, several days after the authorities announced a warrant and reward for his arrest. The second suspect, Smith, was already being held in DeSoto County on a separate charge. However, he was arrested because he allegedly stole the car that was used to commit the murder on Wednesday, January 12, 2022. Smith and Johnson were charged with grand theft, first-degree murder, illegal weapon possession, and using a gun during a serious crime. The U.S. Marshals also arrested another individual named Shundale Barnett in relation to the capture of Justin Johnson. Apparently, he was a passenger in the vehicle driven by Johnson. In February of 2022, the police disclosed that they had identified 2 persons of interest, Devin Burns and Joshua Taylor.
Officers need help locating 26-year-old Devin Burns and 26-year-old Joshua Taylor. With the addition of these 2 men, there are now 5 people total either behind bars, on the run, or wanted for questioning.
These individuals were associated with the crime in some capacity, though not directly implicated as suspects. The investigation also led to the apprehension of Hernandez Govan, suspected to be the mastermind behind the attack, who just lived a few houses down.
Images of this now infamous white Mercedes, Memphis police say, was the getaway car used in young Dolph's murder at Makita's Cookies, has been viewed by millions. The car was found outside this abandoned home on Bradley Street days after the killing.
But here's where the plot thickens just a bit.
It's the same home seen here in this music video featuring young Dolph's accused killer, Justin Johnson, also known as Straight Drop.
The evolving details surrounding the case garnered attention and prompted questions about the roles played by each individual involved. The roles were gradually coming into focus. Govan was identified as the orchestrator behind the hit.
The new indictment, the new suspect, Mr. Govan, we allege was the person who put the hit out on young Dolph.
Johnson and Smith, on the other hand, were identified as the alleged shooters. They were charged with grand theft, first-degree murder, illegal weapon possession, and using a gun during a serious crime.
Justin Johnson and Cornelia Smith are, we allege, the 2 shooters. They are the people that are captured on the video that was released publicly a while back, showing the actual shooting.
Even Justin Johnson's brother, Jamarcus Johnson, was implicated as an accomplice who aided him while he lay low. And surprisingly, Jamarcus Johnson entered a plea deal that essentially said he only had a connection to the murder after the fact.
Jamarcus Johnson had no involvement in the homicide before the murder. He had no involvement in the homicide during the murder.
These events marked a turning point, as Johnson became the first among 4 defendants to either plead guilty or be convicted in connection to Dolph's shooting. The entire gist was that even though young Dolph's death occurred during Thanksgiving, these men had begun plotting since June 2021. Thanksgiving just presented an opportune time to carry out the attack. This was because young Dolph was known to return to Memphis annually to distribute free turkeys to the less fortunate. However, there was a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit, and that piece police was the motivation behind Govin's decision to order the hit on young Dolph. It remained a mystery. Okay, look, from all indications, Govin wasn't a prominent gang leader in Memphis, and there wasn't any known grudge or vendetta against Dolph. This gap in clear-cut motivation led some to speculate that these individuals did not act alone, possibly involving a larger gang network. Maybe the Trella Mafia? I don't know. However, I'll get into that in just a bit. The entire case was getting more complex than the entire YNW Melly saga. Now, while Johnson and Smith were taken into custody, Joshua Taylor remained free and connected to the case, making him a potential target due to his association with young Dolph's murder. It wasn't long before the powers that be caught up with him, or I guess, in this case, shot him. The incident unfolded around 12:56 p.m. on June 14, 2023, when authorities responded to a call regarding an injured individual on Spotswood near Bunton. Upon arrival, they discovered a male victim with gunshot wounds, tragically pronounced dead at the scene. Currently, no information about the suspect is available, and the investigation remains ongoing. However, the report suggested that Taylor died due to his gunshot injuries. However, this is where stuff gets more interesting. As the pieces of this complex puzzle began to fit together, more light began to be shed on Taylor's affiliation with a group connected to the individuals charged with young Dolph's murder. This group was called Trella Mafia. Joshua Taylor, although at this point it would make more sense to call him by his other name, CEO Teasy, was allegedly, and I use the word allegedly very strongly, the head of the Trella Mafia. And apparently, this was the group the Straight Drop, aka Justin Johnson, and other ops of young Dolph came from. But it wasn't only Taylor that had died allegedly connected to young Dolph's murder. There was also Newski, the death of Newski. Another Memphis rapper, Big Newski, met a tragic end, shot and killed after revealing his location on Instagram. The news of his untimely death has sparked various speculations and questions surrounding his affiliations, connections, and the circumstances of his demise. Big Newski, also known as rapper Big Dirty, had intriguing connections that raised eyebrows. He was not just another artist, he was also a cousin of rapper Big 30, and is also Moneybagg Yo's artist and even part of his artistic crew. This connection led to ties with the renowned music label CMG, Collective Music Group. This group is affiliated with Yo Gotti, a known op for young Dolph. Yo Gotti featured Moneybagg on a diss track, Don't Beef With Me, aimed at Dolph. But things took a complex turn as rumors began to swirl about his ties with Straight Drop, someone allegedly linked to the murder of young Dolph. The incident prompted an unsettling question. Could Big Newski's death be a retaliation for young Dolph's murder? I'm really just throwing it out there. An intriguing element emerged when the white Corvette spotted at the scene of young Dolph's crime appeared in both Straight Drop and Big Newski's photos. Straight Drop, allegedly connected to the murder, posed in front of the car, as did Big Newski. Now the question remains, who is the owner of the white Corvette? And is there a chance that the same car that was seen with both Newski and Straight Drop was the same one at the crime scene of the murder of young Dolph? But let me lay down the facts. Straight Drop has been arrested in connection to the murder of young Dolph. A white Corvette was seen at the scene of the crime. Both Straight Drop and Big Newski have been seen in front of a car that has a lot of similarities to the one at the crime scene. Big Newski turns up dead. This is just after two people who also have relationships with young Dolph murder were killed. One for making an insensitive joke and the other for being a person of interest in the murder case. It may seem like a stretch, to be honest, but these are the streets and people have been killed for lesser connections. Now I ain't saying that Big Newski is guilty or not. I can't know for sure, but sometimes the streets act based on emotions and intuition. If the streets think you're cool with another person who committed a crime against their op or whacked another person, then you may just be next in line, and that's facts. Ultimately, Big Newski's passing adds another layer of complexity to the story. His ties to CMG, Straight Drop, and the white Corvette are all elements that intertwine and weave an intricate narrative of affiliations and suspicions. But as the investigation continues, the truth might emerge, shedding light on the intricate dynamics of this world, where perception often outweighs reality. For all we know, just as these deaths all suggest the possibility of revenge killing, the death of young Dolph could have been a result of that too. Now Dolph was a loved man, always giving with an open hand and all, but when you're in the streets, egos can clash, and that's exactly what happened between him and Yo Gotti. In 2014, Gotti offered Dolph a record deal, which Dolph turned down. Surprisingly, Gotti wasn't insulted or outraged by this, but it did create some tension between them, and this tension was only going to escalate. 2 years later, Dolph took to Twitter and dissed Gotti. He wrote, "Bra went from being my #1 fan and wanting to sign me to being my biggest hater." No name was mentioned, but this would be the spark that would set off their feud. Coincidentally, a few days later, Dolph released an album titled King of Memphis. This title had a deeper meaning than it initially appeared. Yo Gotti had always referred to himself as the King of Memphis, so Dolph's album was a statement that he had now taken the throne. However, Dolph later clarified that he didn't mean he was the king of Memphis, but rather a king of Memphis. For him, all his partners were kings. Funny enough, Yo Gotti went on Hot 97's Ebro in the Morning Show in February 2016 to say that their entire beef was overstated. However, not everyone saw it the same way as Dolph. A rapper named Black Youngsta, who was closely affiliated with Yo Gotti, took offense to the album title. In a now-deleted Instagram video, Youngsta called out Dolph, calling him derogatory names and questioning his claim to the title. He said, "Dolph, you a bitch, you a soft. If you got a problem, say you got a problem," says Youngsta in the video, which has since been removed from his Instagram account. He then went on to further diss Dolph, calling him a bitch, before adding, "You ain't even no king of Memphis. He ain't from the city, bitch." The tension escalated further when Black Youngsta made another social media post threatening violence towards Dolph. He wrote, "When I see that nigga at Young Dolph, I'ma smack the shit out of him on my life." It became evident that things could potentially turn violent. To show how serious he was, Black Youngsta posted a video where he and his crew were armed with guns, roaming through Dolph's neighborhood. Many believed Youngsta was simply carrying Yo Gotti's orders behind the scenes. During an interview with UK DJ Tim Westwood, Yo Gotti was asked about Black Youngsta's video, and his response was quite mixed. Gotti said, "Lil homie is on the team, so I'm going to give him the proper advice from a big brother or homie standpoint. My advice is, don't handle your business like this." Despite the mounting tension and threats, Young Dolph remained unshaken. He took to Instagram and directly called out both Yo Gotti and Black Youngsta, stating, "First thing first, everybody know it's you, Yo Gotti. That's sending your artist out to say the lame shit he been saying and doing. I guess you still mad cause I didn't never sign with your at. Or is you still in your feelings cause you fell out with Gucci Mane and you was mad at me cause I kept rocking with Gucci?" Youngsta responded with a diss track titled Shake Some, where he specifically referenced how Dolph was nowhere to be found when he came to Dolph's hood. However, later on, the entire beef between Black Youngsta and Dolph seemed to end when Black Youngsta tried to lay the beef to rest on his side, but Young Dolph didn't get the memo. Young Dolph released a diss track targeted at Yo Gotti in a song titled Play With Yo Bitch, but Yo Gotti kept silent. He only posted a tweet that he was business partners with Lil Reed and Jay-Z. During an appearance on DJ Holiday's radio show on February 9th, 2017, Young Dolph explained his course of action and what motivated him. His last two mixtapes, he's trying to sneak diss Dolph, Dolph stated, referring to Yo Gotti. Dolph was specifically referring to Yo Gotti's mixtapes Cocaine Music 9, White Friday, and Gotti's studio album The Art of Hustle, which outsold Dolph's album King of Memphis, released on the same day. Despite Yo Gotti initially staying silent and refusing to engage in the beef with Young Dolph, it seemed he had reached his limit. On February 11th, 2017, he unleashed a diss track called Don't Beef With Me. Gotti chose not to call out Young Dolph by name, but instead opted to play the subliminal game. The track featured CMG artist Moneybagg Yo and Black Youngsta, and served more as a warning shot than an all-out attack. Next, Dolph released a music video for Play With Yo Bitch, with a lookalike for Yo Gotti as a way to mock him. Probably this hit a nerve because on February 25th, 2017, the very next day, the rap community held its breath as news broke that Young Dolph had been targeted in a shooting in Charlotte, North Carolina. More than 100 rounds were fired at Dolph's vehicle, but luckily he emerged unharmed because his SUV was bulletproof. Determined not to be deterred, Dolph performed his Yo Gotti diss track, Play With Yo Bitch, at a local venue later that night. After spending much of February 2017 in a war against Yo Gotti, Young Dolph seemed to be moving on from the situation and focusing on the future instead of dwelling on the past. During an interview on March 7th, 2017, Dolph referred to the beef with Yo Gotti as old news. He also refrained from commenting extensively on the shooting incident in Charlotte, hinting that the battle between the two Memphis rappers had been temporarily put to rest. However, months later, news broke that Young Dolph was the victim of another shooting, this time in Hollywood. He was rushed to the hospital after being shot near the intersection of Hollywood and Highland outside of Shoe Palace. According to sources, both Yo Gotti and Young Dolph happened to be staying at the Lowe's Hotel when the altercation took place. Their respective entourages engaged in a heated argument that quickly escalated into a violent fistfight. Tragically, the confrontation ended with shots fired, leaving Young Dolph wounded. In the heat of the moment, reports emerged that Yo Gotti was being scrutinized by law enforcement.
The LAPD now wants to talk with rapper Yo Gotti following a shooting in front of Lowe's Hotel in Hollywood.
The LAPD initially identified him as a potential suspect in the shooting incident. However, XXL reached out to the LAPD and discovered that these reports were unfounded. While Young Dolph was recovering from his injuries, the LAPD announced a major major development in the case. They revealed that a member of Yo Gotti's entourage, Corey McClendon, had been charged with attempted murder. McClendon was promptly arrested the day after the shooting and held on a hefty bail of $1 million. The investigation was ongoing as the LAPD sought 2 additional individuals believed to be connected to the fight with young Dolph. In a surprising twist, Corey McClendon was eventually released without any charges. The rest of the investigation into young Dolph's shooting remained unresolved, with no further arrests made by law enforcement at that time. But then young Dolph died, and eyes started wandering, mouths started speaking, and even though the police hadn't said anything about Yo Gotti being involved, eyes were on him. It kind of still all comes down to the Trula Mafia. Trella Mafia. Okay, so I've been mentioning Trula Mafia a lot regarding young Dolph and what could have been the relationship with young Dolph. Following the tragic murder of young Dolph, the investigation took some unexpected turns. As news of Dolph's murder spread, online investigators began sharing clues and speculating on possible involvement from Yo Gotti. They swiftly connected the dots, pointing to a potential connection between Trula Mafia and Gotti's group. Pictures circulated online, showing Hernandez Govin, one of the suspects, hanging out with Big Juk, Gotti's sibling. Even Grove Hero, in a video, claimed that Big Juk had offered a significant sum of money for anyone who would kill young Dolph.
Hey man, look bro, man, Juk put a $40,000 hit on you, bro. Like, man, come on, bro.
Everyone was like, hold up, wait. This revelation further fueled the online discussions and allegations against Gotti, Juk, and CMG for their alleged role in Dolph's death. But the wildest rumor was from this video allegedly showing footage of Govin at Yo Gotti's restaurant. It may be a reach, but the whole situation is just sus. Right now, there are 5 suspects that the police have named: Hernandez Govin, Justin Johnson, Cornelius Smith, Jamarcus Johnson, Shundale Barnett. And in one way or another, they all have ties to the Trella Mafia. These individuals were not your average street hustlers. No, they operated on a much grander scale. Their criminal endeavors went beyond petty crimes. They ran elaborate theft operations. But what does this have to do with young Dolph? In 2010, young Dolph established his record label, Paper Route Empire. A year later, he decided to extend a family favor by signing Key Glock, a talented rapper who also happens to be his cousin through marriage. However, this move may have caused tension between the Trilla Mafia and the Paper Route Empire. Key Glock and other young artists associated with the label seem to have serious conflicts with members of the Trilla Mafia. Young Dolph may not have fully understood the implications of signing these artists. It was a business decision rather than a consideration of the beefs and street problems they were involved in. And, like I've mentioned in the streets, affiliations are everything. The wrong one could affect you. Unfortunately, when tensions rise and problems surface with an artist like Key Glock, the responsibility falls on the person who brought them into the fold. In this case, the Trella Mafia may have directed their sights on young Dolph himself. But that's not all. Further exploration revealed an interesting connection to the rapper J Money Trula, who had collaborated with young Dolph on a song titled Take My Life. Tragically, J Money Trula was killed in 2016, followed by the death of his brother D Money. There were several allegations about the identity of D Money's killer, purportedly a rapper named Uncle Danny, who young Dolph later signed. In fact, in the aftermath of young Dolph's death, there was a revealing exchange between a user and J Money's mother. This dialogue hinted at possible motivations. The user said J Money would have had these streets crying about Dolph, to which J Money's mother responded, he sure didn't cry about him or D Money. He signed D Money Killer. The user was like, damn. And she replied, yelp the Uncle Danny nigga that he just signed. Though no evidence pointed to young Dolph disrespecting Trilla Mafia or inciting any conflict, the act of signing Uncle Danny could have triggered unforeseen consequences. It's unclear whether Dolph was aware of this association or if he saw it purely as a business move, while it remains uncertain whether Joshua Taylor or Big Nooski's death directly correlated with young Dolph's murder. The circumstances aligned with the patterns of gang culture, often driven by a tit-for-tat mentality. This culture of revenge could have motivated their death. Bringing the focus back to Joshua Taylor, his position within the gang involved in young Dolph's murder painted a picture of a revenge-driven killing. Taylor's role as a leader within the gang may have prompted a calculated move by a rival faction aimed at settling old scores. In the unspeakable tragedy that befell young Dolph, it appears that Taylor, a prominent figure within the gang, played a central role. His involvement hints at a motive rooted in revenge, as if this heinous act was a calculated response to past conflicts. What's even more chilling is that Taylor not only held membership in the gang, but also a leadership position. It makes one wonder if this act of violence was orchestrated by an opposing faction driven by a desire to exact their own form of justice. This dangerous game of chess played out on the streets is not for the faint-hearted. Maybe that's why CEO TZ was taking out the head to hit the body. I know you may feel this entire situation must be terrible for those involved. Well, you're only half right. For Hernandez Govin, the alleged mastermind behind the hit, well, things took an unexpected turn in May 2023 when Govin was granted bond and allowed to leave prison. This decision sparked outrage among the public, but his case isn't a capital offense, and according to Tennessee state law, he can be allowed to go.
Breaking news in young Dolph's case. Hernandez Govan, one of the prime suspects in the rapper's death, is now out of jail on a $90,000 bond.
What raised eyebrows was the relatively low bond amount of $90,000 assigned to Govan. Many saw this as a suspiciously low price for someone accused of orchestrating a first-degree murder. During the bond hearing, Judge Lee Coffey made an interesting remark. He mentioned that the state has gained more clarity regarding the defendant's role in the alleged conspiracy and that medical and safety concerns support alternative custody arrangements for the defendant. The fact that safety was mentioned suggests that Govan may be at risk while in jail. Though Govan being granted bond may be frustrating, there are two other crucial pieces of information to consider. Firstly, he is under house arrest and can only leave his residence for medical emergencies or to meet with his attorney. Secondly, and most importantly, the family of young Dolph supports the state's recommendations and actions. Ultimately, their stance holds significant weight in this narrative. As for Justin Johnson and Cornelia Smith, they have been denied bond or bail, meaning they will remain in prison until their trial begins in March 2024. Of the two, Johnson has garnered more attention, particularly because it was discovered that he was also an aspiring rapper known as Straight Drop. Before his arrest, Straight Drop wasn't widely known, but he seems to be trying to make the most out of his unfortunate situation. During his incarceration, he managed to release a song titled No Statements. It appears that he rapped it over a prison payphone while someone on the other end recorded it. Just 2 months into his arrest, Johnson encountered some trouble with other inmates. It was reported that while he was on a prison phone call, another inmate approached and punched him in the face. Although Johnson wasn't seriously injured, this incident is a stark reminder that even within the confines of a supposedly protected prison, he is not entirely safe. It may be because of his alleged crime against Dolph, or maybe because he is a sex offender. Whether Johnson sustained any visible injuries from the altercation remains unclear. If one has visible injuries on their face in prison, the guards are bound to inquire about what happened. Deciding whether to inform the officers of the incident has pros and cons. On one hand, it might lead the authorities to separate a person from the general prison population, deeming them a security risk. On the other hand, it carries the risk of being labeled a snitch, which could potentially worsen their circumstances in the long run. Whatever the case may be, I can only hope that the right culprits be brought to justice. That's all.